Welcome to Red Chameleon. If you like the video, please smash the like button. Today's AskReddit question is, serious, people from Reddit who survived Corona. How has your daily life changed? What are the side effects after? Let's get started. Everything I've eaten since tastes almost completely different. Interesting. I was concerned I may have gotten it since my wife is an RN and has been exposed at least half a dozen times, but she never tested positive and I never showed the most prominent symptoms: cough, fever, fatigue, etc. I didn't really notice my smell had diminished a ton, until it came rushing back so hard that even the smell of something like mild body wash physically hurt my nostrils, like when you spend a long time breathing in dry, -degree air. Meat has suddenly started tasting bland or plain rotten. Chicken tastes like it's been left over in the fridge for a week or two, even if it's fresh bought and rapidly cooked. I can't taste the beef part of beef anymore, if that makes sense. It just tastes like bland fat. Pork has no taste, but at least nothing offensive. I've basically been eating vegetarian for a good 2 months because it's that unpleasant. Depends on your definition of surviving. My grandma that I've been caring for since I was 12 died from complications when she caught it from a visitor who refused to wear a mask. He was infected. I lost my second grandmother a month later. Her husband, my grandpa, died from a broken heart the following week. Now my aunt in Arizona caught it and is in intensive care. My little cousin is showing symptoms, and there is nothing I can do but watch them slowly get sicker and pray and hope and beg they don't die. Edit. I should mention my aunt is no longer in intensive care. She might have to return, but so far she is not. I caught it from a patron who visited the bar I worked at in March. He was laughing about coming back to the UK from Italy, which had the worst rate of infection at the time. I was really ill and couldn't really breathe for a long time and ended up with pneumonia and cracked ribs from coughing. No doctors wanted to see me, and I couldn't get a test because it was so early on, so I had to manage by myself from home. I was exhausted all the time and worried that I wouldn't wake up because I was too tired to breathe by myself. I recovered after about 3 weeks and managed okay from then until it came back again in July. It was so much worse the second time. I have spoken to about 15 different doctors, and they all say it's more likely to have been reactivation rather than catching it for a second time. But I ended up in hospital with oxygen saturation of 88%. I was unconscious in the ambulance and had to go to the emergency room by myself as my boyfriend wasn't allowed with me. It was incredibly scary. They let me go with some oxygen canisters and serious monitoring for the next 4 weeks. Since then I have stopped coughing, but the fatigue is unreal, and I am experiencing what I would call COVID brain. I still have scarring on my lungs, and I'm not sure that I will ever be as well as I was before again. Occasionally my cough will come back, but most of the time now it's not being able to work or move all that much. Everything is exhausting. All of this because someone decided they'd rather have a pint of beer than save lives. I nearly died at the hospital. He doesn't know me or the effect he's had on my life, but I hope a tiny part of him feels guilty. I'm desperately sad and angry. I got it at the end of July and had mild symptoms for 3 weeks and lost my sense of smell. No appetite, lost weight, and could barely walk in the beginning of it. I'm young and have no underlying health issues as of now. I still get extremely fatigued. When I was nearing the end of my other symptoms, I couldn't stay awake at all, and my smell comes and goes also. I'm just now getting a negative test back, and it's almost October, so I was testing positive for 2 months even when I started to feel better. Some inspo for anyone frightened and having anxiety over this virus. Both of my parents have compromised immune systems, cancer, and lupus, and they overcame COVID too. So there is hope for anyone who gets it, but that isn't always the case. So please take it serious, guys. It wasn't fun at all, and it did not feel like the flu symptoms to me. Lol, it wasn't anything I'd ever felt before. Personally, I had no effects apart from feeling it for a few days. I was one of the first in my area to be isolated, as my dad was the second person in the county to have caught COVID whilst already in hospital. Over a period of 6 days from the day he tested positive, things got progressively worse, and sadly I lost my dad on the 6th day. In normal circumstances, it is almost impossible to wrap your head around, but as we were isolated, it was even stranger being stuck inside whilst trying to process. Whilst this was happening, my stepmother also caught COVID, as we had all been in contact with my dad the day he had tested positive. Between 4 of us left in the household, 2 had symptoms within 10 days, and 1 had absolutely no symptoms, and I had few for a short number of days. My stepmother has made a full recovery health-wise. Daily life has changed drastically over the past 6 months as we deal with my dad's passing whilst processing everything else that is happening in the world corona-related. I think the most frustrating thing is the people that do not believe, and it takes everything I have to not react to the silly comments you see plastered on social media. My main side effect is extreme fatigue. My mom still can barely taste anything, and has lost some smell. It's been around 2 weeks. Daily life is mainly changed by the amount of makeup work and homework that needs to be done. Y'all please wear a freaking mask and social distance. I didn't even get a bad version of corona, but it still felt like I had a horrible version of strep. I had corona for 4 weeks, constantly coughing so hard I would throw up, and sometimes cough up blood. No doctors would see me, and just sent in prescriptions for me over the phone, that my husband went and picked up for me. We have a spare room in our house where I stayed alone for 4 weeks, so as to not get my son or husband sick. I had a TV and a bathroom to myself. My oxygen saturation got down to 83% at one point, so I went to the hospital. They gave me another test even though I already knew I had it, and told me 83% isn't bad. Just don't lay down flat because you could pass out and not get enough oxygen, leading to organ and brain damage. They sent me home with no prescriptions, just their advice to sleep sitting up. So I slept sitting up from there on out, afraid that if I laid down I would die. In total, my prescriptions and recommended medications were nebulizer albuterol solution, albuterol inhaler, told me to use it every 3 hours. I got a RX for cough medicine that was a steroid. I forget the name unfortunately, and my doctor also recommended I use the cough syrup Delsym. With all of that advice and medications, I still felt like I was dying. I couldn't breathe. My throat was so sore from coughing that I could hardly eat. I was terrified to sleep, fearing I wouldn't wake up. But after the 4 weeks of isolation and sickness, I felt better and came out of my room. Now it's been 5 months since then. I have no long-term effects from this. I feel 100% better and didn't spread it to any of my family or friends. I was one of the early adopters, but didn't put it together until the known symptoms list stabilized. I had very light symptoms, almost non-existent. Roommate got laid out. Up until a few months ago, taking a flight of stairs winded me. I originally thought it was because I got fat over winter. Now, not as much. I was 4 months pregnant and had bad fevers and did not want to go or move a lot. But my boyfriend got it too, and he was in the hospital and almost died due to COVID. He got pneumonia and doctors were telling him that they were not sure if he was gonna live. He got the plasma transfer and he's okay now, but was on oxygen after the hospital. Overall it sucked, but here I am working almost 8 months pregnant. Stamina seems to be cut in half. At least I stopped with the audible wheezing on every breath a couple months ago. But I've gone from being able to normally go out hiking 8 to 12 miles before March to getting totally exhausted after 4 miles. Less if there's even a hint of any elevation change. Just can't get enough oxygen in my lungs. Not the worst thing in the world, of course. So many other people have more serious, long-lasting or permanent damage. But kinda sad to think this is going to be the new normal for me. And it's likely I won't be able to do as much physically as I used to, ever. It may come back. Even complications from more normal lung issues like pneumonia can last for months before full recovery, but full function often does come back.